This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are we doing today? This is the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com, your Sports Illustrated home for your Alabama Crimson Tide. Of course, I am Joe Gaither. You're listening to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. You're watching us on Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube today. We appreciate everybody who subscribed, rated, and reviewed the program or tuned in to us on our social media feeds at Joe Gaither6 or at Bama Central on the YouTube channel. What are we going to do today? Oh, my gosh. I am still on cloud nine from Saturday night. The Alabama Crimson Tide advances to its first Final Four. What? There was a time when that was just a pipe dream. 89-82 over the Clemson Tigers. So what will we do? What are we going to do? We're going to talk about the game against Clemson. We're going to talk about really the tournament as a whole so far for Alabama, highlight some of the great performances, and talk about what it means for the Crimson Tide program as a whole. Now, we will get into UConn talk as it gets later in the week. That's not really what we want to do today because we want to celebrate. We want to celebrate and enjoy Monday. We want to celebrate at least for one day before we look at Big Bad UConn. What a great Saturday night it was to be here in Tuscaloosa. And so, look, Alabama beats Clemson 89-83 to avenge the loss that it suffered in November. And in a lot of ways, it looked a lot like the game in November. You had Alabama played decent defense in the game. They played really good defense in the second half of in the second 10 minutes of the first half. But really, it was a very similar game than the game here in Tuscaloosa. But you look at Clemson's three-point percentage; they only made 30% of their threes, as compared to 52% that they made in November. You got to give Joseph Girard a lot of credit for his 19 points, and PJ Hall did foul out, and so you could argue some of those fouls were a little bit ticky-tacky, but I think it was really a case of the better team won on Saturday night, and Clemson's Cinderella story kind of ran out. What a great weekend it was. You beat Carolina and you beat Clemson. You knock out two of the ACC's top teams, and you end up on your way to Phoenix, your first Final Four ever. Just unbelievable. You started off really bad from three, just like you did here in November. That's why I think it was a very similar game. The pace of the game was more in favor of Clemson than it was Alabama, but Alabama shot better in this game, and Alabama really had much more effective offense, efficient offense, and you got to give credit to Nate Oates and the coaching staff, Ryan Pannone, and you got to give credit to Adam Bauman, lots of guys in the scout, Austin Kleitch and Preston Murphy as well, getting ready for this Clemson game. The guys just looked like they were a whole lot more prepared to see the 2-3 zone and to attack both zones, the 3-2 and the 2-3. They were kind of going back and forth between those at different times. And you got a lot more Jaron Stevenson in this game, and we'll talk about that as well. But the bigs that you played as well as they could have. You look at Alabama and you don't have nearly the same rotation as you did in November. You only get 1 minute out of Diabate and 1 minute out of Wagee. Wagee had 10-12 minutes in that game against November, and his foot is really been a problem for him. But look, Alabama, I just think that their game plan, Alabama's game plan, was really crisp and really sharp, and it really allowed the Crimson Tide to overcome some of the personnel deficiencies that they had. You didn't have Latrell Wrightsell for the second straight game, and you were hopeful that he was going to be back in action, and it sounds like maybe he's trending in the right direction for the Final Four game, and luckily the Final Four game is on Saturday, not on Thursday or Friday, so he's getting an extra 2 days to rest, another full week for Latrell Wrightsell to get ready for the game. But yeah, you don't have Latrell. You only get 1 minute out of Wagee, and you know that going in that you're not going to get more than maybe 3 minutes out of Muhammad Wagee because of his foot situation. And then you don't have Devin Cosby because of the broken foot. He hasn't played at all in the postseason. And so you're limited. You're down 3 scholarship players. If you want to count Kai Spears as a scholarship player or not, he is on scholarship, but he's not really in that scholarship margin. So you're down to 9 players. And how many did play? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All nine did play, but Diabate and Wahi really only played you the 1 minute piece. You and Chris Parker, is redshirt. So you had 8 players really. Just amazing. I thought that Alabama battled. My biggest concern with Alabama was going to be the rebounding and the physicality on the interior with Clemson, because I thought Gottfried and I thought that PJ Hall and Ian Shefflin were going to be a really big load. And Shefflin did have a good game, 18 points, a better game than he did here in Tuscaloosa. 18 points, 11 rebounds. He had a bunch of rebounds here in Coleman Coliseum as well. And he shot 50%. He shot 7 of 13, so a little better than 50%. But you were able to really slow down. Like, the 3-pointers weren't falling for them, and you got to give credit to really Rylan Griffin, and you give credit to Mark Sears getting up in them. You got to give credit to the effort. I know that if you looked at the points per possession, Clemson had 1.12, and that's not really that good. Alabama's aiming for that 0.6 or 0.7, but you're able to frustrate Clemson to a pretty decent degree, and you're able to protect the basketball. 13 turnovers is not that good, but I just think the effort was so much better, and the quality of the two teams was on display on Saturday. I know that Clemson has gone on this really improbable run. They held teams to a really, really low 3-point percentage, but Alabama making 44% of their threes. Look, Alabama's down 26-13, and you're thinking, oh boy, you're not hitting. The 3-pointers aren't going in. Oh my gosh, you're starting to get nervous. You got to get somebody loose. And from there, at 26-13, Alabama locked in and went on a 22-6 run to close the half, taking the halftime lead 35-32. And really, it just I have Mark Sears' calming effect written down in that second part of the half. Mark Sears started to take over, and Jaron Stevenson really got going as well. That second part of the half really started to kind of show you, okay, Alabama, you're not missing at the rim anymore. You got to dunk it. You saw my man Blake Byler's tweet in one of the timeouts. NATO, it's talking about, oh, don't lay it up anymore. Dunk that bleep. So Alabama really got aggressive, and I just think that the belief has really set in for this team. And I think that really when they saw that Clemson was the matchup and not Arizona, confidence really set in for this team. And they played confidently through the second half. Maybe it was just – I was kind of overwhelmed with emotions through the second half, thinking about what it means for the program, thinking about Nate Oates and how much, where he's taken this program. I thought, look, last Monday, Nate Oates was on Hey Coach, and you're going to be able to hear Hey Coach again tonight, right there on all the Crimson Tide Sports networks, and it's going to be a big Final Four episode. But Nate Oates last week on Hey Coach talked about how, we made the Sweet 16. It's 3 out of the 4 years that we made the Sweet 16. That's really good. We think we're doing a really good job here at Alabama, but we have to make a Final Four to basically prove that we're a real program, to prove that we're a real basketball program. And I thought when he said that last week, I thought, oh my gosh, that's a little bold. That's a little out there. You're going to get really some egg on your face, Coach, if you end up going out in the Sweet 16 round against North Carolina, or if you end up if you end up going out with a bad performance as well, you're going to have some egg on your face. But no, they have the really great game plan against Carolina, and I think he outcoached Hubert Davis. I don't know that they outcoached Brad Brownell. I think Clemson really got the most out of their players. But I think what you saw on Saturday was the growth that Alabama has taken since November is a lot greater than the growth that Clemson took. I don't want to disparage the growth that Clemson took. They obviously were a better basketball team than what they were in November. But Alabama has taken, leaps and bounds better than what they were November 28th as well. So I just really think that, where you are here, Nate Oates, I worried that the Final Four comments last Monday were going to get you kind of burned a little bit. And he's, that's a little bit Coach Oates' style. He's going to be brash. He's going to tell it like it is. And sometimes it's going to burn him. Sometimes it's not. We've seen that happen before. But to go out and basically have the team ready, Think about it 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, we're up in Nashville, and the team is putting on a horrific performance. I mean, the first 4 minutes of the game in Nashville were amazing. And if you'd have taken that through, you never know. You might be on a what? You might be on a 2-4, 7-game win streak instead of a 4-game win streak. But no, you unraveled up there in Nashville, and I thought, oh my gosh, how is Coach Oates going to get this team back on track for the first round? Now, the draw was favorable. Yes, the draw was favorable to get Charleston as your 13 seed, to get a team that wants to play the exact same way as you do, but doesn't have the same style players or same caliber players. Yeah, that worked in your favor. And Grand Canyon had a horrific night at the free throw line and really, played into your favor as well offensively. They weren't doing too many complex offensive sets, but you grew up in the Grand Canyon game. You fought through that. I mean, basically, you saw Grand Canyon take the lead in the second half, and Alabama fought back and closed the game out. You've seen massive growth over these 2 weeks, over these 4 games that, quite frankly, I don't think that I saw coming. I don't think that you look at my bracket and I had Alabama going out in the Sweet 16. If you had told me 2 weeks ago that Alabama was going to be more mature than North Carolina with RJ Davis and Armando Bacot, I thought, I don't see that. I don't know about that. But the guys have bought in so much to the Mudita factor we're playing for each other. And look, did they wake up 2 weeks ago and become better defenders? No, they didn't. They're still not that great defenders, but the buy-in is so much higher that the effort, I think, is so much higher that, okay, maybe physically there's some deficiencies, but I just think that I'm playing for my brother. I'm playing for Chris Stewart in particular. If you listen to the game on Crimson Tide Sports Network after the game, you had Mark Sears and Ryland Griffin coming to Chris Stewart after the game saying, we did this for you. We saw the package on CBS about everything you've gone through, the stroke and, massive organ failure and nearly died and everything that he's been with through this program. They said, we wanted to do this for you. Like, I just find it so refreshing, and maybe I'm just sunshine pumping, but I just find it so exciting and encouraging the, selfless nature of this basketball team. And is it anything that I could have predicted? No. I thought that, this basketball team, Coach Oates talked about it all season long. Oh, do we want to just be a historic gadget gimme offense, a video game offense with some good players, or do we want to be some winners? Something in the last couple of weeks has just clicked with these guys. I don't know if it's the desperation of, oh my gosh, this is the end of the line. Aaron Estrada, this is the end of the line for you, buddy. Maybe Aaron Estrada goes on and plays overseas somewhere, but this is absolutely his last little bits in college basketball. I don't know if it's the end of the line factor. I don't know if it's Mark Sears kind of, hey, look what we did last year and how we went out early. I mean, Mark Sears has been absolutely insane through this tournament games. And so it was just a great weekend, and I'm so pleasantly surprised. I cannot wait to get to Phoenix. So we're going to go out there on Thursday. Myself, Blake Byler, and Katie Wyndham will be out there covering the Crimson Tide in the Final Four. And I guess pinch me. I'm dreaming. I cannot wait to get out there, and maybe you guys can find your way out there as well. I want to talk about Ryland Griffin. I want to talk about Mark Sears. I want to talk about Jaron Stevenson, Nick Pringle, and I got a point about validating Alabama. So here we go. Ryland Griffin. Look, Ryland Griffin over the course of 4 games, he has the good game, the scoring game against Grand Canyon. But what's your game logs? Ryland Griffin game logs. Yeah, let's look at yours, buddy. As we're coming along through this year. Yeah, last 5 games. That's perfect. That's what I want to see. Last 5 games against the College of Charleston. He scores 9. Okay, no double figures, but he's in double figures the next 3 games. 13 against Grand Canyon, the second leading scorer for Alabama. 19 against North Carolina, and 13 against Clemson. I think a lot of people gave, and rightfully so, Grant Nelson the flowers and attention after the North Carolina game. You've seen different players step up in each and every round. But Rylan Griffin's defensive willingness and want to defend the best players on the other teams. It was Chase Hunter against Clemson. He was a little bit of R.J. Davis, and it was a little bit of Cormac Ryan against North Carolina. And so you've seen him basically take on the defensive mantle, and I think that Rylan Griffin has become, if he wasn't a fan favorite, the WWF kind of the WWE parallels that Rylan's been drawing has been a lot of fun to follow. Now Rylan has basically been the defensive stopper. He has 4 steals in the tournament, two blocks already, and he's got 8, 9, 10, 11. He's got 9 turnovers, 9 assists, and 8, 9 rebounds as well. So he's been all over the place. In how many minutes? What does it say? 33, 29, 30, and 20. So a heavy load for Alabama. And Rylan Griffin, he's going to have a huge matchup this weekend in the Final Four. It's going to be him and Tristan Newton going head-to-head, and Tristan Newton probably going to be a lottery pick. And look, if there's anybody who can shut down Tristan Newton, if there's anybody who can defend UConn's best basically outside dribbler, basically playmaking dribbler, it is Rylan Griffin. Rylan Griffin compares beating North Carolina to Brock Lesnar taking down the Undertaker. What was that? 2015 in WrestleMania, he broke the Undertaker's streak, and it kind of is because the Undertaker, blue blood, big time brand, North Carolina, blue blood in college basketball. They were 21. They were going for their 22nd Final Four, I think is what it was. 8 national championships. And they had the pedigree in Armando Bacot, Hubert Davis, R.J. Daly. They had it. But something about this team, they relish the underdog role, it seems like. They're in the underdog role against North Carolina. They were favored against Clemson, but I think that once they were in we're favored against Clemson, but it's the Elite Eight, it's not hard to say, hey, go make history. It's not hard to say to motivate them, hey, go beat a team that beat you, whether you're the favorite or not. Go erase, go rectify a loss in order to make history. I think Alabama's going to be a huge underdog on Saturday. I think I'm seeing 11.5 points on Saturday. And Rylan's going to be huge, I think, from a mentality standpoint. He's got the whole Brock Lesnar. We're going to be the one. I mean, Brock Lesnar was scheduled to go against The Undertaker. If you don't know this, and it's fine if you don't, you're not a wrestling nerd like I am. But the Brock Lesnar is basically scheduled to go up against, who are we going to feed to The Undertaker this year to continue the streak? 22-0. Who are we going to feed to? And wrestling's a gimmick. It's all a show. I enjoy it just because I enjoy it. But, I get it that it's all a scripted show. And so who are we going to feed to The Undertaker to make it 22-0? And all leading up to it, okay, we're going to feed Brock Lesnar. If Brock Lesnar's a good enough opponent, we can make some sort of a feud, and we can get these guys in the ring and get people interested and then make the streak 22-0, and Brock, will keep going about his career. But Brock Lesnar, and okay, I know he's got a lot of out of the ring scandals right now with Vince McMahon, but Brock Lesnar at the time, 2015, basically says, no, I have ascended myself to superstardom level in this company as a wrestler and as an MMA fighter. He was heavyweight champion of UFC, so he was a superstar level talent, and he basically goes to management and says, no, I'm not accepting the loss. I know that North Carolina is the blue blood, and North Carolina is supposed to get to the Elite Eight, and that's what they're supposed to do, and that's how this tournament's supposed to play out, the number 1 seed. But I'm not accepting that. Brock Lesnar says, I've established myself. I've been working hard. I've won titles in other places. I've won 4 SEC championships in the last 5 years. It basically says, I'm not accepting that. Rewrite it right now. And you see Paul Heyman, his manager, essentially go into shock mode after he pulls off the win, pulls off in air quotes after the show goes off, and he hits the pin. But Brock Lesnar hits him with 3 finishers to get the win. three finishers, three ball, Alabama with threes. I thought it was a perfect comparison for Ryland to basically lean into the wrestling aspect. And you see it in the Final Four. Ryland Griffin gets the WWE Championship belt with the Alabama kind of side emblems. And he was freaking out, having a good time with that. And Nato's was as well. And so maybe the guys will basically, become the underdogs, become the villain, and upset UConn, maybe Purdue, maybe NC State. We'll see. But Ryland became a lot of fun to fall in love with this weekend. If I get a chance to talk to Ryland, I'm definitely asking him his top 5 favorite wrestlers. I want to know, where he has Stone Cold, where he has some of the great wrestlers, The Rock, if he's enjoying what's going on in wrestling today. WrestleMania coming up, I think, later this month. We won't cover it very much at all right here on the show because that's not what you're listening to the show for. But we'll see if Ryland Griffin is interested in what's going on in WrestleMania here pretty soon. Mark Sears is my next one that I want to talk about. And look, I put it up yesterday. Is Mark Sears the greatest player to ever wear an Alabama uniform? And I think that's very hyperbolic. It is hyperbolic. But think about it real quick. Look at what he did in this 4-game stretch. Mark Sears game 1. That's what I want. 30 points against College of Charleston, 26 against Grand Canyon, 18 against Carolina. Okay, down game. You don't get to 20 for like the first time in weeks. And then 23 against Clemson. And not only the 23 against Clemson, but you've come out of the locker room, right? You've come out of the locker room after, what did you have in the first half, Mark? 5 points in the first half. Not that good, really. And you only have a 3-point lead. Your teams, fought back and really closed the half well. And Mark Sears says, we need a little lift. Let me just go 6 of 7. Let me score 18 points in the second half to make sure that me and the Crimson Tide go to the Final Four. Mark Sears really shining through in the biggest moment of the year. I mean, was it the biggest moment in Alabama basketball history, an Elite Eight game? You could argue that. He steps back and makes a 3-pointer from the logo, and it's just like cojones, balls of steel from Mark Sears, fearlessness driving into the lane. And you saw Mark get open a lot of different times and a lot of different ways, attacking the zone and getting into the lane. You got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff preparing these guys. But I think that Mark Sears is a little bit of an extension of these coaches, an extension of, here's what we're seeing, here's what we're going to get into. I mean, I say that because you hear Mark after the North Carolina game saying, they were going to draw up a play for me in the sidelines, me in the huddle in the second half. And I say, no, Grant's hot. Grant Nelson's doing good. He's cooking. We got good matchups with Grant Nelson. Let's keep drawing it up for Grant. And we know what Grant ended up doing. So, I think, look, is he Reggie King? Is he Derek McKee? Nah, I don't know. I mean, look, neither of those guys got Alabama to a Final Four. I have a hard time crowning someone the greatest. I really do, because I think that really people do it all the time in basketball. Michael Jordan's the greatest. LeBron James is the greatest. I think that when you're comparing different eras, that it's a bit silly. You kind of put people into a class on their own, like a MVP class or, a special All-American class. I hate saying greatest, honestly, because I think it's disrespectful to the people that you're leaving off. But Mark Sears, I mean, is he more talented than Brandon Miller was last year? Is he more talented than Colin Sexton was for his single season? No, he's not. I mean, you put him in a one-on-one game with those guys, he's losing. But as far as what he means to the program, you return from Ohio. You got Alabama last year to the number 1 overall seed, number 1 seed in the country. You basically took Alabama to the mountaintop. Mark Sears has 2 SEC championships under his belt. Mark Sears now has 2 Sweet 16s under his belt. He now has the only Final Four under his belt as well. Oh, and you heard me rattle off the scoring numbers to get there. Mark Sears this season scored more points than any Alabama basketball player in a single season ever. He passed Reggie King this past weekend. Or the weekend earlier. He passed Reggie King in the NCAA tournament. No, my man Blake Byler wrote the story, and he had it ready for us. Blake Byler was all over the West Coast the past 2 weeks in Spokane, Washington, and in LA. I hope that he's getting a lot of rest before we go back out there to Phoenix, because he's going to be back out on an airplane covering the Crimson Tide. But yeah, Mark is the single. And here's the deal, guys. Look, you can say No, he's not as good as Derek McKee. Oh, he's not as good as Latrell Sprewell. Oh, he's not as good as Mo Williams. Whoever you want to put him up against, and I'm gonna probably disagree with you. But let me throw this at you. Mark Sears right now taking Alabama to the Final Four. He's got a Saturday game to prove it on the biggest stage in college basketball. But let's say win, lose, or draw. You lose by 15 to UConn. You beat them by 1, whatever the case may be. Any result, doesn't matter. The season continues or it's over. Think of yourself next November if Mark Sears is still on this roster because he decided to come back and utilize his final year, because his NIL number got raised to the right number, because he was taken care of by the Alabama community. Where is Mark Sears in 12 months from now when he's a third-year Alabama player? Think about the roster next year. I mean, we are so juiced about this season, and you should be. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. It's history. And we've been talking all year long about how this year's roster had deficiencies, and this year's roster was making up for personnel problems, and you don't have anybody in the post who can handle anybody. You don't have anybody who can protect the rim. Okay, and they've got to the Final Four. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. But then you get next year's roster and you say, Mark Sears, will you lead Aiden Sherrill? Will you lead Darian Reed? Will you lead second year in the program Latrell Wrightsell? Will you lead second year in the program Jaron Stevenson and Sam Walters? It's gonna be really, really incredible. Chris Parker, it's been incredible already. And you could say, no, Mark is not the greatest player in program history. And I think that you still have some arguments for other players. And I do want to make room and acknowledge the great players that have come before Mark. There's been dozens. But if Mark goes, whatever happens on Saturday and whatever happens on Monday, whether Alabama's in the game or not, if Mark Sears comes back to school, comes back to the capstone, and puts on another year where he is leading the program, competing for an SEC tournament title, an SEC regular season championship, getting another high seed in the NCAA tournament, and rolling the dice and taking Alabama as far as he can in another NCAA tournament, 3 tournaments in a row for Mark Sears, I think that he's in position to be the greatest player in Alabama basketball history. And while I think that that's scary to say for me, because I don't really like absolutes like that. I don't want to disrespect the people who have come before myself. I mean, look, I was born in '89. I haven't watched all of Alabama basketball. I didn't get to see the Sanderson teams in the '80s. Really, all I just know about that is from Coach Sanderson, is from history and from reading and watching stuff. But goodness gracious, the resume would be Final Four, 2 SEC tournaments, three times in the NCAA tournament. The resume for Mark Sears would be otherworldly 12 months from now. It's already amazing. And I think in the conversation for this guy is most impactful player in the program maybe ever. And great to see just an Alabama kid from Muscle Shoals. Obviously, we all know he went to Ohio first, but now representing for the state of Alabama. Where do you think Mark Sears is he the greatest player in Alabama basketball history? Has he already done enough for you, taking the Crimson Tide to the Final Four? And he did absolutely take them there. I mean, the second half performance, 18 points in the second half, basically said, you know what? I had an okay game against Carolina. I had a okay half. Let me get going and get cooking. And he really took Alabama into the Final Four on his back. We got to talk about Jaron Stevenson. And Jaron Stevenson brings me to basically the Robin role. You had in all four games, somebody filled the Robin role to Mark Sears' Batman. Yeah, Mark Sears was Robin, I guess, to Grant Nelson's Batman in the North Carolina game. But we all know it's Mark Sears' team. Mark, we listed off his points earlier. He went, 30? Yeah, he went 30, 26, 18, and 23 in the 4 games. But in the other games, Latrell Wrightsell, 17 points against College of Charleston. Latrell Ryland Griffin, 13 points against Grand Canyon. Grant Nelson, 24, 23 points against North Carolina. And then against Clemson, it was Jaron Stevenson. So how hard is it to prepare for a basketball team that any given night somebody can play the number 2? Like, okay, we know we're going to throw a good defender at Mark Sears. We know we're going to have a good plan for Mark Sears. And we're going to have to basically do our best to make him go right. Do our best to keep him out of the lane. Do our best to press upon him, make him take deep three-pointers. And I guess if he's shooting from the logo, that's not deep enough for the defense. You know Mark Sears is going to be a problem. But to know that any given night, it's an unpredictable factor that maybe it's Latrell, maybe it's Ryland Griffin, maybe it's Grant Nelson, maybe it's Jaron Stevenson, maybe it's Nick Pringle. I mean, hell, Nick Pringle had an amazing 4-game stretch, a really strong 4-game stretch, and flew himself to Spokane, Washington. Lots of people making a big deal about him doing that, but Nick Pringle had a great four-game stretch as well, and you absolutely needed every single bit of those minutes because, going up against Armando Bacot, going up against PJ Hall, like these are no slouches. We saw what those guys did. You saw what PJ Hall and his teammates did. Ian Cheflin did in Tuscaloosa in November. Like, Jaron. That's where we're starting first. Jaron, 19 points and just an amazing game. What was he? 3 air balls and 3 air balls where Stevenson, 3 air balls, 5 of 8 from the 3-point line. And 2 of his misses were just nothing burgers. And then getting into the lane on the roll into the basket aggressively and dunking, this kid should be in high school. This kid this past weekend, I know if you're in Tuscaloosa, there's a lot of proms over the last couple of weeks, whether it be County High or Northridge or anywhere. It's prom season. Jaron Stevenson should be taking, a fellow senior in high school to prom. But no, he's out there on the court, and not only out there on the court in the biggest moment. I mean, he had a not good game against North Carolina. Let's be honest with ourselves. He kind of a nice little game against College of Charleston, but not so hot against Grand Canyon or North Carolina. And you got to imagine playing against North Carolina, being a Chapel Hill kid, is challenging. He didn't really have that good of a game. But for him to come off the bench and get in there and really give Alabama a huge lift every time the Clemson young man Joseph Girard, Joseph Girard, he made five threes himself, but every time Joseph Girard makes the 3 in the second half, boom, is Jaron Stevenson right back at you. It was answer after answer after answer, and it's just wild. The depth of this team, while the defensive depth and the front court depth is a little bit concerning, anybody on any given night can go off from 3 and can go off and fill it up. And so just impressive for Alabama to have 4 different players on 4 different nights step up and help Mark Sears take Alabama to the promised land. Now let's get into Nick Pringle. Nick Pringle with how many points against Clemson? 19. Is that what I just 16 against Clemson? His 4-game stretch. I mean, the offensive numbers aren't amazing. 5, 6, 2, and 16. But what's he do from the free throw line? 8 of 13, 61% from the free throw line, which is a marketable improvement for Nick Pringle. He's 54% for the year. And really, you look at his rebounding numbers. You look at you only have 2 against College of Charleston, but nine against Grand Canyon, 9 against Carolina, and 9 against Clemson. He's all over the place just with his presence. And you got to give him a lot of credit, too, because he didn't foul out in any of the games. 3 against College of Charleston, 3 against Grand Canyon, 4 against Carolina, and 3 against Clemson. And you know that you needed him. If he was going to get into foul trouble, it was going to hinder a lot of things. It was going to make Muhammad Wague have to play, and Muhammad Wague probably, you saw what he was able to give you. I think he gave you maximum minutes. I do. People are like, why can't he do more? He's got a bum foot. He's got something, the foot injury that he came to Tuscaloosa with just has never really, he's not right. He's not healed enough to give you any more than he's giving. And so Nick Pringle good on you flying out to Spokane. I know that put a lot of Alabama fans into angst. Oh my gosh, is he not getting along? Oh my gosh, is he a team cancer? I think he is absolutely anything but a team cancer. I just think that his passion runs at level 15 out of 10. And sometimes maybe that passion clashes with the Alabama head coach, Nate Oates, who I think's passion sometimes runs at about a 12, 13, 14 out of 10. And you know what? When coach and player get into it, usually you got to side with coach for the betterment of your program. And so, hey, man, you can't fly to Spokane with us. You can't fly to Spokane with us. If you want to be a part of this team, you got to fly your own way. He does that. He's all in. He gives you 4 great games of great effort on a bum heel himself, doing lots of rehab on his own heel. You're down. You're down Waukee, you're down Crosby and Wrightsville. Nick Pringle looks himself in the mirror and basically says, oh, I can't be down as well. And just 4 great games out of Nick Pringle. And Nick Pringle has the tallest task of anyone in the next round dealing with Klingon, and we'll see how he can do that. Let's finish it up with a little bit on Alabama as a whole and as a program and what this means and what this does. Nate Oates was already recruiting at about as high as a level as you could have right here without the Final Four mantle, without it. You look at the next year's recruiting class, you got 2 McDonald's All-Americans. You look at last year's recruiting class, 2 years, I guess, with Brandon Miller and Noah Clowney, and Ryland was in that class as well. So he has proven that he can recruit high-level talent to Tuscaloosa. What does it really mean? It means something to the casual fan, the fan who looks at Alabama and says, oh, they're a football school. Oh, they don't do anything other than football. That's simply not true. Just like what the 2010 softball national championship, well, it was 2010, right? The Dancing in the Rain. Just like that national championship really kind of elevated that program, I think, on campus. I think they were already popular, but I think it elevated the program even further into kind of mainstream popularity into, hey, it's springtime, I'm an Alabama fan, I'm getting into softball. That's just what you do. The excitement is palpable here in Tuscaloosa. It's only Monday. You've only been Final Four participants for 2.5 days, but the energy, yes, it was Easter yesterday, and so maybe that's what it was, and praise the Lord for Easter, absolutely. But the energy at church yesterday was just higher, better. Just the excitement is everywhere throughout town. And it feels like maybe early stages Nick Saban dynasty. Now, are we saying that? No. We'll see what Nate Oates does, and you don't want to take this for granted. It might be the only Final Four that you get to ever. Ideally not. But what does it do for you? When you say, oh, Alabama basketball is the second best basketball program in the SEC, and everybody laughs at you, and they say, well, where's your Final Four? And you say, well, and you rattle off a list of a bunch of NBA stars that you've had throughout the years, and you rattle off a list of SEC tournament titles and SEC titles. Oh, where's your Final Four? Where's your Final Four? How far have you been in the Well, only one Elite Eight. Oh, well, only one Elite. And you had to tell the truth, but just from a casual perspective, it was Kentucky, and then, Florida's won back-to-back national championships in the 2000s, so obviously Florida's number 2, right? And you don't want to take anything away from Billy Donovan and those teams. They were obviously great, and you don't want to take anything away from what Florida's doing now. But Alabama is the second-best program in the SEC. And this Final Four really serves as a big old stamp. And no matter what happens on Saturday, whether Alabama loses by 30 or wins by 1 or wins by 30, whatever happens, it's going to carry this moment. These couple of weeks are going to live in the memories and in the minds of Alabama fans really for a long, long time. And so, look, you've heard me bitch and complain about attendance in Coleman Coliseum. You have. And, many people have given me good reasons of, the tip times are bad for Birmingham, and the sight lines in Coleman Coliseum aren't that good, and this, that, or the other. And those are valid excuses. But what does this Final Four do? I wonder, I believe, I am hoping, does it basically stoked the fever in Tuscaloosa, stoked the fire of the average fan and say, oh, it's November. It's November and Alabama's hosting Arkansas State on Friday night. Oh, I'll go over there, have a $7 ticket, $12 ticket, whatever the case may be, and holler my tail off for this early November game. I mean, Alabama hosted South Alabama, hosted Arkansas State. You hosted a bunch of bad basketball teams. I guess not bad, not really fair. Indiana State almost made the tournament. Like you had some decent matchups, and then the Clemson game as well. Nobody showed up to the Clemson game. People, Jay Williams talking about a tennis match. I'm hopeful that this Final Four will put college basketball on your calendars for November, not for, it's December, Alabama's out of the playoffs, just got bounced out in the Rose Bowl, time to turn to basketball, we're right in the start of the SEC season. No. Coach Oates, you've been paying attention, or if maybe you haven't, but over the last 5 years, he's made December exciting. He's made November exciting by scheduling very difficult games, and I think that's going to continue. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to follow the program. I'm hopeful that breaking this glass ceiling, breaking this barrier, Coach talked about it yesterday at the airport, basically saying, well, we got to go win the thing, but the biggest deal was getting into the Final Four, and hopefully we can get to more Final Fours. I mean, look, you got to the Sweet 16 a bunch of times, and it was like, oh, that's our ceiling. Well, if the new ceiling is the Final Four, how much happier, how much better off is the program than it was 4, 5, 6 days ago? And yeah, I know you look at the road and it's like, oh, was it the hardest road? No, but you got to beat the teams that are on the road. And you handled it unbelievable to beat North Carolina. The consistency to play with a bit of desperation. That's something that I don't think that I've seen out of this team that much this year, and to see it over the last 2 weekends has been really, really exciting. All right, so we're going to get out of here for the day. You guys can always leave us a comment on what you thought about the show at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. You can subscribe to the show, The Joe Gaither Show, on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. You can send me a friend request or whatever you want to do on those social medias. Subscribe to the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We'll have lots of coverage from our time out in Phoenix at the BamaCentral YouTube channel. It's just at BamaCentral. You can watch all the press conferences and really anything that we are able to see in our coverage. You've seen Blake Byler's videos and Katie Wyndham's videos and lots of Alabama football practice videos up there as well, right there at the BamaCentral YouTube channel. So that's going to do it for my day today. I appreciate everybody who's watched us. You guys can tell a friend about the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, and we'll be back for another episode tomorrow right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.